The morning started like any other morning on Council Station Alpha. The massive station floated in space, home to 50,000 beings from 300 different species. Ships came and went through the docking bays. Diplomats walked through the long hallways. Scientists worked in their labs. Everything seemed normal. Council Prime Velthara sat in her office reviewing reports on her data screen. Her crystalline body reflected the soft blue light from the windows. She had led the Galactic Council for 20 years. She was good at her job. She kept the peace between hundreds of worlds. She solved problems. She made decisions that affected billions of lives. Her assistant rushed into the room. The small creature looked worried. Velthara looked up from her screen. "Prime Velthara, we have a situation," the assistant said. "What kind of situation?" Velthara asked. She had dealt with many situations before. Wars, trade disputes, accidents. She was not easily worried. "The humans are gone," the assistant said. Velthara stared at her assistant. "What do you mean, gone?" "All of them. Every human on the station. Every human in council space. They left during the night. Their quarters are empty. Their workstations are abandoned. Their ships have departed." Velthara stood up quickly. "That is impossible. There are thousands of humans on this station alone. Millions across council space. They cannot all just leave." "But they did," the assistant said. "We checked. Every human settlement, every human colony, every human post, all empty. They took their belongings and left. No messages, no warnings, nothing." Velthara walked to her window and looked out at the station. She could see the main corridor below. It was busy as always, but now that she looked closely, she noticed something. The maintenance crews working on the air systems were not there. The medical staff hurrying between clinics were fewer than usual. The technicians who normally checked the power systems were missing. All of them had been human. She called an emergency council meeting. Within an hour, representatives from the major species gathered in the council chamber. The large room had seats arranged in a circle. Each species had their own section. The human section was empty. Commander Zixkor arrived first. The tall reptilian warrior stood with his arms crossed. His scales were dark green and his eyes were yellow. He was the leader of the Crithian military forces. The Crithians were proud warriors. They valued strength and honor above all else. "So the humans finally left," Zixkor said with a laugh. "Good. We never needed them anyway. They were always weak, always hiding behind computers and tools. Let them go." Trade Minister Kalvesh arrived next. The avian minister's feathers were bright blue. Her species controlled much of the galactic trade networks. She looked more concerned than Zixkor. "This is unusual," Kalvesh said. "Humans handle many of our shipping routes. They manage warehouses. They process trade documents. We may have some disruptions. Disruptions we can handle," Zixkor said. "Other species can do that work." Scientist Ornvik was the last to arrive. The insectoid researcher moved slowly on his 6 legs. His compound eyes looked at the empty human section. Unlike the others, he looked genuinely worried. "This is bad," Ornvik said quietly. "Very bad. You do not understand what humans do, what they have been doing for centuries. They fix things," Zixkor said dismissively. "They run errands. They do simple work that anyone can do." "No," Ornvik said. "They do much more. I have worked with human engineers for decades. They designed most of our systems. They maintain our infrastructure. They solve problems we do not even notice. If they are truly gone, we will feel it soon." Velthara raised her hand for silence. "We need information." "Have we tried contacting them?" "Yes," her assistant said. "We sent messages to all known human territories. We only received automated responses. The messages say that humanity has withdrawn from galactic affairs. No explanation. No demands. Just a simple statement that they are leaving." "Did they say why?" Kalvesh asked. "No. The message gives no reasons." The council members looked at each other. This was strange. Species did not simply leave the council without explanation. There were always negotiations, always discussions, always warnings. But the humans had said nothing. They had just left. "Perhaps they are upset about something," Kalvesh suggested. "They will return when they calm down. Or perhaps they realize they need us more than we need them," Zixkor added. "When their colonies start failing without our protection, they will come back." Velthara was not so sure. She had known Ambassador Claire Martinez, the human representative. Martinez had been patient and professional, but in recent years, Velthura had noticed something in her eyes. A tiredness, a disappointment. Martinez had made requests. Small requests, more representation in council decisions, recognition for human contributions, better compensation for human workers. The council had always denied these requests. Humans were junior members of Galactic society. They had only been part of the council for 400 years. Other species had been here for thousands of years. Humans needed to earn their place, not demand special treatment. Now Velthura wondered if she had made a mistake. The meeting continued for another hour. They made plans to investigate. They assigned other species to take over human duties. They decided to send diplomatic messages to human space. Everything seemed under control. But that afternoon, the first problems appeared. The environmental systems in Section 7 stopped working properly. The temperature dropped 5 degrees. The air became stale. Engineers rushed to fix it, but the control systems were complex. The documentation was written in technical language that the engineers struggled to understand. It had been written by humans for humans. In the medical center, 3 patients died, not from their injuries, but from complications during surgery. The alien doctors were skilled, but they had relied on human nurses and technicians to prepare equipment and monitor vital signs. Without them, simple procedures became dangerous. In the communications center, translation software began showing errors. Messages between species became garbled. Misunderstandings occurred. Small arguments broke out. The human programmers who maintained the software were gone. These were small problems, inconveniences. The council barely noticed them. But they were just the beginning. Far away, beyond council space, a fleet of human ships traveled through empty space. Captain Alex Morgan stood on the bridge of his ship, the horizon's end. Behind him, hundreds of other ships followed. Colony ships, transport vessels, cargo haulers. Every ship was full of humans leaving their old lives behind. Morgan watched the stars ahead. They were heading to a region of space that had never been explored. They would build new colonies there, new settlements, a new home for humanity, far from the council that never appreciated them. Dr. Lisa Harper walked onto the bridge. She had been a doctor on Council Station Alpha for 15 years. She had saved thousands of lives. She had trained dozens of alien medical students. She had worked 70-hour weeks and never complained, and in all that time she had received exactly 3 thank you notes. All from other humans. How are the evacuees? Morgan asked her. Settling in, Harper said. Some are still processing what we did. Others are just relieved. Most are ready to start over. Any regrets? Morgan asked. Harper thought about this. She thought about all the patients she had left behind, all the students who would struggle without guidance, all the medical advances she would not share with the galaxy. Then she thought about the alien doctors who took credit for her work, the administrators who ignored her suggestions, the patients who thanked everyone except the human staff who actually saved them. No, she said. No regrets. Engineer Kyle Bennett joined them. He had designed much of the station's infrastructure: power systems, water purification, air recycling, data networks. He knew every system intimately because he had built most of them. They will figure it out eventually, Bennett said, looking at a data pad. The documentation is all there. The blueprints, the maintenance schedules, everything they need. Will they read it? Harper asked. Bennett shrugged. That is their choice. We gave them 400 years of service. We left them everything they need to continue. What they do with it is up to them. Morgan nodded. The decision to leave had not been easy. It had taken decades of discussion among human leaders, decades of hoping things would improve, decades of watching their people work thankless jobs while other species received praise and recognition. Ambassador Martinez had fought the longest. She believed in diplomacy. She believed they could make the council understand. She gave speech after speech explaining human contributions. She requested meetings. She wrote reports. She tried everything. Nothing changed. So finally humanity stopped asking. They stopped explaining. They stopped waiting for recognition that would never come. They simply packed their belongings and left. Quietly, peacefully, without anger or threats or demands. They said nothing because there was nothing left to say. They had said it all before and no one had listened. How long until we reach the new territory? Harper asked. 3 months, Morgan said. 3 months to our new home. To a place where we can build something better. Something where everyone's work is valued. The three of them stood together watching the stars. Behind them, hundreds of thousands of humans traveled toward an uncertain future. But 2 weeks had passed since the humans left. What started as small problems had grown into serious issues. Council Station Alpha struggled every day. The cracks were showing everywhere. Engineer Kyle Bennett's replacement stared at the control screens in the main engineering bay. His name was Vex, a Crithian who had served in the military for 20 years before taking this position. He was smart and experienced, but right now he felt completely lost. The water purification system had failed 3 hours ago. Red warning lights flashed across the control panel. Vex had pulled up the technical documentation that Bennett left behind. The words made sense individually, but together they meant nothing to him. Terms like cascade filtration and reverse osmosis protocols filled page after page. Bennett had explained these systems to him once, months ago. It had seemed simple when the human engineer talked about it. Everything made sense. Now, staring at the same screens alone, Vex could not remember any of it. Try rerouting through backup system 4, another engineer suggested. They tried. The system rejected the command. An alarm started beeping. Stop, Vex said. We are making it worse. They spent another 2 hours trying different solutions. Nothing worked. Finally, they managed to restart the most basic functions. The water system came back online, but it was operating at only 40% capacity. 50,000 beings lived on this station. They could not survive long on 40%. Vex reported the problem to Velthara. She listened with growing concern. This was not the only system failing. The oxygen recyclers in Section 3 had shut down yesterday. The heating system in Section 9 was stuck on maximum, making rooms unbearably hot. The communications array kept dropping connections. Every day brought new failures. Every day the problems grew worse. In the medical center, Dr. Lisa Harper's absence was felt even more strongly. The hospital had lost 8 patients in 2 weeks, not from their original injuries or illnesses. From complications that should have been preventable. Dr. Krinval was the new chief of surgery. She was a skilled doctor from a species known for their medical knowledge. But she was overwhelmed. The hospital ran differently than she expected. Equipment was not where she thought it should be. Procedures that worked in her home hospitals did not work here. Medicine dosages seemed wrong for the station's mixed population. She finally understood. Human doctors and nurses had adapted everything. They had figured out how to treat 300 different species in one facility. They had memorized which medicines worked for which species. They had trained everyone. They had built a system that worked smoothly. Now that system was falling apart. Mortality rates had tripled. Surgery times doubled. Simple procedures became dangerous. The medical staff worked around the clock, but they could not keep up. They were skilled doctors, but they lacked the experience and knowledge that human medical workers had built over centuries. Trade Minister Kalvesh called an emergency economic meeting. Representatives from major trading companies filled her conference room. All of them looked worried. 17 major shipping routes have stopped operating, one representative reported. The logistics networks are collapsing. We cannot track cargo anymore. Shipments are getting lost. Deliveries are delayed by weeks. The financial systems are failing too, another added. Transaction processing is down. Credit transfers are not completing. Some worlds cannot pay for their imports. Kalvesh listened to report after report. The galactic economy was built on complex networks of trade, shipping, and finance. Humans had managed these networks. They processed the paperwork. They tracked the shipments. They maintained the computer systems that made it all work. No one had realized how much humans did until they stopped doing it. Can we hire other species to do this work? Kalvesh asked. We are trying, a representative said. But humans were trained for this. They understood the systems. Training new workers will take months, maybe years, and we do not have that time. Food shortages were already being reported on 17 worlds. Medical supplies were stuck in warehouses with no one to process the shipping orders. Raw materials needed for manufacturing sat in cargo holds while factories waited for deliveries that never came. The economic collapse was accelerating. Commander, Zixkor stood in the military command center, his pride in ruins. The Crithian fleet was supposed to conduct training exercises today, 50 warships performing tactical maneuvers, a display of military power that would remind everyone why the Crithians were feared across the galaxy. Instead, 30 of those ships could not leave dock. Their navigation systems were malfunctioning. Their weapons targeting computers showed errors. Their communication arrays could not maintain stable connections. Human technicians had maintained the military networks. They updated the software. They fixed the bugs. They kept everything running smoothly. Zix's Corps had barely noticed them. They were just support staff. Background workers who did simple technical tasks while real warriors trained for battle. Now his mighty fleet was crippled by technical problems. Worse, pirates had noticed. 3 colonies had been raided in the past week. The defense grids that should have protected them were offline. The patrol ships that should have responded could not coordinate their efforts. The Galactic Defense Force, the most powerful military in known space, could not protect its own territories. Zix's Corps had called the humans weak. He had laughed when they left. Now he stood in his command center, surrounded by malfunctioning screens and broken systems, and felt shame for the first time in his life. Warriors were useless without weapons that worked. Ships were useless without systems to fly them. All the strength and courage in the galaxy meant nothing if you could not launch your fleet. Scientist Ornvik watched his research lab shut down. One by one, the experiments stopped. The equipment failed. The data systems crashed. Decades of research ground to a halt. He had worked with many human scientists and engineers over the years. He had always appreciated them. They were thorough, detail-oriented, patient. While Ornvik and other alien scientists focused on big theories and exciting discoveries, the humans handled the practical work. They designed experiments properly. They maintained equipment. They organized data. They caught mistakes. Ornvik had published 37 major research papers in his career. Looking back now, he realized that humans had contributed to 35 of them. They had done the work that made his discoveries possible. They had solved the technical problems that would have stopped his research. They had been essential to his success. He had thanked them, of course. He had always been polite, but their names did not appear on his papers. The credit went to him. The awards went to him. The recognition went to him. The humans just moved on to the next project, supporting someone else's great achievement. Now there was no one to support his work. No one to maintain the equipment. No one to organize the data. No one to catch his mistakes. His brilliant theories were useless without practical implementation. The galaxy was not just losing human labor. It was losing the invisible foundation that made everything else possible. Belthara convened another emergency council meeting. The chamber was quieter this time. The confidence from 2 weeks ago had vanished. Reality was setting in. Ornvik presented his analysis. He had spent the past week researching human contributions to galactic society. The numbers shocked everyone. Humans are 3% of the galactic population, Ornvik said, but they maintained 60% of our critical infrastructure. They handled 70% of our interstellar logistics. They wrote 90% of our technical documentation. They trained most of our skilled workers in practical fields. He pulled up more data. In medicine, humans provided direct patient care for 40% of all cases. They taught 60% of medical courses. They developed most of our current treatment protocols for multi-species environments. In military systems, humans designed 85% of our current technology. They wrote all the software. They trained all the technicians. In scientific research, human contributions appear in 90% of major breakthroughs over the past century, not as lead researchers but as essential support staff. The council chamber was silent. The numbers were devastating. Humans had been everywhere, doing everything, making it all work, and everyone had simply ignored them. How did we not see this? Kalvesh asked quietly. Because they did their jobs well, Ornvik said. Everything worked smoothly. We never had to think about it. The systems just functioned. The work just got done. We took it all for granted. Zix's Corps spoke, his voice lacking its usual confidence. What do we do? We need to contact them, Belthara said. We need to negotiate their return. They are not responding to our messages, her assistant said. We have sent hundreds of communications. All we get back are automated replies saying humanity has withdrawn from galactic affairs. Then we find them, Belthara said. Send scout ships. Search their last known territories. Find out where they went. We need to talk to them face to face. The meeting ended with grim determination. The council would find the humans. They would bring them back. They would fix this situation, but it was already too late to simply fix things. The damage was done. The cracks had appeared. And cracks have a way of spreading. 6 weeks after the humans departed, galactic civilization was collapsing. What had been cracks were now chasms. What had been problems were now catastrophes. The galaxy was learning the hardest lesson of all. Council Station Alpha declared a state of emergency. The massive station that had housed 50,000 beings now struggled to support 20,000. Life support systems were failing faster than engineers could repair them. Power flickered on and off. Water was rationed. The air quality dropped every day. Velthara walked through the dim corridors. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow. She passed empty sections that had been sealed off to conserve resources. She heard the constant alarms warning of system failures. The heart of galactic government was dying, and she was powerless to stop it. Prime Velthara, an assistant called out. We have another report. Section 12 just lost gravity. 3 people were injured in the fall. Velthara closed her eyes. Section 12 housed the council archives. Thousands of years of history and knowledge. Now floating loose in zero gravity, probably damaged beyond repair. Begin evacuation procedures, she said quietly. We cannot stay here much longer. Where will we go? The assistant asked. Velthara had no answer. Most major stations were in similar conditions. Planetary governments were barely functioning. The entire infrastructure that supported galactic civilization was falling apart. There was nowhere safe to go. The economic collapse had accelerated beyond anyone's predictions. Trade Minister Kalvesh spent her days receiving reports of disasters. Shipping routes had completely stopped. The complex networks that moved goods between thousands of worlds had simply ceased to function. 37 worlds reported food shortages. 12 were facing actual starvation. Medicine was unavailable on hundreds of planets. Manufacturing had stopped on most industrial worlds because raw materials could not be delivered. Unemployment hit 70% in some sectors. The universal credit system, the financial backbone of the galaxy, had crashed completely. Some species returned to bartering. Others simply hoarded what they had. The cooperative spirit that had defined galactic society for millennia was gone. Everyone was focused on survival. Riots broke out on 17 worlds. Governments fell on 8 planets. Several species declared independence from the Council. The unity that had taken thousands of years to build was crumbling in weeks. Kalavesh sat in her empty office, staring at screens full of bad news. She thought about all the human traders and merchants she had worked with over the years. They had been reliable, honest, competent. She had taken that for granted. She had assumed anyone could do their jobs. She had been wrong. Commander Zixcor's military situation was equally dire. The Galactic Defense Force was essentially non-functional. Ships sat in dock, unable to launch. Those that could launch could not navigate properly. Those that could navigate could not communicate with each other. Those that could communicate could not fight because their weapon systems were offline. Pirate attacks had increased by 300%. Raiders struck at will, knowing no one could stop them. Vulnerable colonies were abandoned. Trade convoys traveled without protection. The mighty military force that had kept peace for centuries could not even protect a single cargo ship. Zixcor stood in the command center, watching it all fall apart. He had spent his entire life training for war. He was a skilled warrior, a brilliant tactician, a natural leader. None of it mattered. He could not fight with broken weapons. He could not lead ships that would not fly. All his strength and skill were useless. He remembered laughing when the humans left. He had called them weak. Support staff. Background workers. Not real warriors like him. Now he understood. The humans had not been weak. They had been the foundation. Warriors need weapons that work. They need ships that fly. They need systems that function. Without those things, warriors are just people waving broken swords at problems they cannot solve. The humans had provided all of that, and everyone had treated them like servants. The medical crisis had become a full catastrophe. Dr. Kreenval worked 20-hour days trying to save lives with failing equipment and dwindling supplies. The mortality rate in her hospital was now 5 times higher than before the humans left. Simple infections killed patients because the right medicines were not available. Routine surgeries became death sentences because the equipment malfunctioned. Diseases that had been controlled for decades were spreading again because the public health systems had collapsed. Krinval tried to remember everything she had learned from human doctors. Dr. Harper had trained her personally. Harper had been patient and thorough, teaching Krinval the complex protocols for treating multiple species in one facility. At the time, Krinval had thought it was basic knowledge. Now she realized it had been advanced expertise that took humans generations to develop. She found an old datapad with Harper's training notes. Reading them, Krinval finally understood how much she had not known. Every page contained insights and solutions that Krinval had never thought of. Harper had made it look easy, but it was anything but easy. Krinval wished she could thank Harper now. Properly thank her. Not just for the training, but for the centuries of work that humans had done to build galactic healthcare. Work that everyone else had simply ignored. But Harper was gone. They were all gone. And people were dying because of it. The communication breakdown was making everything worse. The translation systems that allowed 300 species to understand each other were failing completely. Diplomatic meetings became impossible. Species could not coordinate relief efforts. Misunderstandings led to conflicts. Ancient prejudices resurfaced. Species that had been allies for centuries started viewing each other with suspicion. The unity that had taken millennia to build was being destroyed in weeks. Without the ability to communicate, the galactic community was fracturing into isolated groups. Scientist Ornvik documented everything. He felt it was his duty to record this disaster. Future generations needed to know what had happened. They needed to understand how galactic civilization had almost ended. His research showed a clear pattern. Humans had been involved in nearly every aspect of galactic life, not as leaders or famous figures, but as the workers who made everything function. They maintained the systems. They solved the problems. They did the unglamorous work that everyone else ignored. And when they left, everything they had been holding together fell apart. Ornvik found archived recordings of Ambassador Claire Martinez. The human diplomat had given speeches to the council for years. In them, she had warned about exactly this situation. She had explained human contributions. She had requested recognition and fair treatment. She had predicted what would happen if humanity lost patience. No one had listened. The council had dismissed her concerns. They had denied her requests. They had treated humanity like junior members who needed to prove themselves worthy of respect. Ornvik published the recordings. Within days, they spread across what remained of the communication networks. Billions of beings watched Martinez calmly explaining that humans just wanted basic respect. They wanted acknowledgement for their work. They wanted to be treated as equal partners, not as servants. Her final speech was the most powerful. She stood before the council and said that humanity would no longer beg for recognition. They had given centuries of service. They had built the infrastructure that everyone relied on. They had maintained systems that no one else understood. And they had been ignored, overlooked, and taken for granted. "We will not ask again," Martinez had said. "We will not demand. We will not threaten. We will simply stop. We will leave. And then you will understand what we have been doing all along." The recording ended with Martinez walking out of the council chamber. That had been 3 months before the departure. 3 months of warning that no one had taken seriously. Now everyone understood. But understanding had come too late. Velthara called what would be the final council meeting on Station Alpha. Only half the council members attended. The others were dealing with crises on their homeworlds. The chamber was cold because the heating system had failed. The lights kept flickering. Alarms beeped constantly in the background. "We must face the truth," Velthara said. Her voice was tired. "We failed. We failed to see what humans were doing. We failed to value their contributions. We failed to treat them with basic respect. And now we are paying the price." No one argued. The evidence was overwhelming. Galactic civilization was collapsing because they had taken one species for granted. They had assumed humans would always be there, doing the work that made everything function. They had been wrong. "Our scout ships found them," Velthara continued. "They have established new colonies far beyond our space. They are not coming back on their own. We need to go to them. We need to negotiate. What can we offer them?" Kulavesh asked. "What do we have that they need?" The question hung in the air. The answer was obvious and painful. Humans did not need the Council. The Council needed humans. Humans had been self-sufficient all along. They had provided far more than they received. The relationship had been completely one-sided, and no one had noticed until it ended. "We can offer respect," Ornvik said quietly. "We can offer acknowledgement. We can offer partnership instead of exploitation. 3 months after humanity departed, the Council delegation finally reached human territory. Their damaged ships limped into orbit around a planet that scans identified as New Terra, the first human colony in their new home. Velthura looked at the planet through the viewport. It was a beautiful world. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. The settlements visible from orbit were small but organized. Even from space, she could see that everything was functioning properly. The contrast with Council space was striking. Here, 3 months after establishment, the colony was stable. Back home, 3 months after the departure, civilization was collapsing. The difference told her everything she needed to know about who had really been holding things together. A human face appeared on their screen. Captain Alex Morgan. He looked calm and professional. His expression showed neither anger nor welcome, just polite neutrality. "Council delegation, this is Captain Morgan of New Terra. We have been expecting you. You are welcome to land at the coordinates we are sending. We will provide shelter and supplies for your damaged vessels." That was all. No questions about why they came. No conditions. Just an offer of help. Velthura felt shame. Even now, after everything, humans were offering assistance without being asked. The delegation landed. Human workers immediately began inspecting their ships. They were efficient and professional. They treated the alien visitors with courtesy. But there was something different in their manner. They were not trying to please. They were simply doing their jobs. Captain Morgan met them at the landing pad. Behind him stood Dr. Lisa Harper, Engineer Kyle Bennett, and Ambassador Claire Martinez, all faces that Velthura recognized. Leaders who had served the Council for decades. "Welcome to New Terra," Morgan said. "I apologize for the basic facilities. We have only been here 3 months. But you are safe here and your ships will be repaired." "Thank you," Velthura said. "Captain Morgan, we need to talk. About what has happened. About the galaxy. About everything." "I assume that is why you came," Morgan said. "We have prepared a meeting space. Please follow me." They walked through the colony. It was small but well designed. Buildings were practical. People moved with purpose. Children played in parks. Everything worked. No system failures. No emergencies. Just a functioning community. Zixkor looked around with discomfort. 3 months. These people had been here 3 months and had built something stable. His own military bases with centuries of resources were falling apart. They entered a conference room. Chairs were arranged around a table. The humans sat on one side. The delegation sat on the other. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Velthura began. "I want to start with an apology. A complete apology. We were wrong. We failed to see what humanity was doing. We failed to appreciate your contributions. We took you for granted. And now our civilization is collapsing because of our blindness." Morgan nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that. It means something to hear it spoken aloud." "We need you to come back," Velthura continued. "The galaxy needs you. Systems are failing. People are dying. Entire worlds are suffering. We cannot fix what is breaking without your help." "We are not coming back," Morgan said quietly but firmly. "I am sorry, but that is not negotiable. Humanity has moved on." Velthura had expected this answer, but hearing it still hurt. "Can I ask why?" "We will offer anything. Better representation. Higher compensation. Full recognition. Whatever you want," Ambassador Martinez spoke. "Prime Velthura, do you remember my speeches to the Council? The ones where I requested exactly what you just offered?" Velthura nodded silently. "I gave those speeches for 10 years, Martinez continued. 10 years of polite request. 10 years of asking for basic respect. Do you remember what the Council said?" "We denied your requests," Velthura said quietly. "You did more than deny them," Martinez said. Her voice was tired, not angry. "You dismissed them. You said we needed to earn our place. You said we were junior members. You treated our work as insignificant." She read from a datapad. "We maintain your stations, but you barely notice. We heal your sick, but you barely thank us. We build your systems, but you barely acknowledge us. We have done this for 400 years. How much longer must we wait to be treated as equals? Martinez looked up. I said that 5 years ago. Word for word. The council response was that I was being impatient, that I was demanding special treatment. We were asking for basic recognition. Zixcor spoke up. I laughed when you left. I called you weak. I said we did not need you. I was a fool. You were not the only one, Morgan said. Most of the galaxy felt that way. That is why we left. Not because we were angry, but because we accepted that nothing would change. You would never see us as equals. We see it now, Ornvik said. I have documented everything. I have shown the galaxy what humanity was doing. Many beings are ashamed. Many regret what happened. Does that mean nothing? It means something, Dr. Harper said. But regret after loss is easy. Appreciation during service is harder. You only valued us after we stopped providing value. That tells us everything. So there is nothing we can offer? Kalvesh asked desperately. Nothing that would bring you back? We will not return to council space, Morgan said. We have built something here. A society where our work is valued, where our voices are heard, where we are treated as partners. We are not giving that up. The delegation looked defeated. They had come so far, and the answer was no. However, Dr. Harper said, and everyone looked up. We are not without compassion. We do not wish to see billions suffer. We will offer an alternative. What alternative? Felthara asked. We will share knowledge, Harper explained. We will provide documentation, training programs, consulting services. We will help the galaxy learn to maintain its own systems, but we will not do the work for you. Not anymore, Engineer Bennett continued. The documentation is already written. It is detailed and complete. We will send teachers to help you understand it. We will answer questions. We will provide guidance. But you must do the actual work. You must learn these skills yourselves. How long will that take? Kalvesh asked. Years, Bennett said honestly. Maybe decades for some systems. What humans learned over centuries. You will need to learn much faster. It will be difficult. Many things cannot be fixed quickly. Some expertise cannot be easily taught. But it is possible. And what do you want in return? Belthera asked. Martinez laid out the terms. Full diplomatic recognition of humanity as an independent power. Fair compensation for all services. Acknowledgement in all historical records of humanity's contributions. And most importantly, fundamental changes in how the Council values different types of work. Technical expertise must be valued equally with scientific discovery, she continued. Maintenance work must be respected as much as military service. Support roles must be acknowledged as essential, not inferior. The entire structure of how your society assigns worth needs to change. Bennett added the hardest truth. You created this situation by assuming some work was more important than other work. By treating practical skills as less valuable than prestigious achievements. That thinking is what led to this crisis. If you want to rebuild, you must rebuild on a different foundation. The delegation sat in silence, absorbing this. They were being offered help, but on terms that required fundamental change. The galaxy would have to admit it had been wrong about something basic, about how society values its members. I accept these terms, Belthera said finally. I cannot promise perfect change. I cannot promise everyone will agree, but I can promise that the Council will try. We will restructure. We will reform. We will build something better than what we had. That is all we ask, Morgan said. Honest effort to change. We know it will not be easy. We know some species will resist. But if you are truly committed to building a fair society, we will help. They spent the next several hours discussing details. Which systems needed immediate attention? Which training programs should start first? How to organize the transfer of knowledge. It was complicated and would take years to implement fully. As the meeting ended, Zixcor approached Morgan privately. The proud warrior looked humbled. I owe you a personal apology, Zixcor said. I mocked your people. I called you weak. I did not understand that strength takes many forms. The strength to maintain. The strength to support. The strength to work without recognition. These are not lesser strengths. I was blind. Morgan looked at the warrior commander. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. Warriors are important. But warriors need weapons that work, ships that fly, systems that function. No one is more important than anyone else. We all need each other. Ornvik spoke with Dr. Harper. I want to apologize too, he said. I appreciated human work more than most. But I still took credit for achievements that humans made possible. I published papers with your data, your experiments, your problem solving, and I never included human names as co-authors. Harper smiled sadly. We know it happened to all of us. Every human scientist, engineer, and technician has stories like that. We were always in the background, always supporting someone else's success. That is why we left, not for revenge, just for dignity. I will correct the record, Ornvik promised. I will publish revised papers. 1 year had passed since humanity departed. The galaxy was different now. Scarred. Changed. But slowly, painfully, it was learning to survive. Engineer Kyle Bennett stood in what used to be Council Station Alpha's main engineering bay. The station had been reoccupied 3 months ago after extensive repairs. It could now support 15,000 beings instead of the original 50,000, but it was functional. That was progress. He watched a group of alien engineers work on the water purification system. They moved slowly, checking their data pads constantly, confirming every step. What would have taken Bennett 20 minutes was taking them 4 hours. But they were learning. More importantly, they were doing it themselves. Vex, the Crithian engineer, looked up from his work. Bennett, can you check this reading? I want to make sure I am interpreting it correctly. Bennett walked over and looked at the screen. That is correct. The pressure differential is within acceptable range. You are doing it right. Vex nodded, relief visible on his face. A year ago, he had been frustrated and lost. Now he was competent. Not expert yet, but competent. Bennett felt a strange pride watching him work. Teaching was harder than doing, but somehow more satisfying. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human advisors worked with alien students, teaching the skills that had been taken for granted for so long. It was slow work, frustrating work, but it was happening. Dr. Lisa Harper taught at a medical training facility on a major world. Her classroom was full of alien doctors eager to learn. They hung on her every word. They asked thoughtful questions. They took detailed notes. The appreciation was overwhelming after years of being ignored. The key to multi-species medicine is understanding that one size does not fit all, she explained. This drug dosage works for my species. It would kill yours. You must always check, always verify, always think about who you are treating. Dr. Krinval, now Harper's assistant instructor, added her own insights. She had learned so much in the past year. More importantly, she had learned how much she did not know. That humility made her a better teacher. The mortality rates in hospitals across the galaxy had dropped significantly, not to pre-departure levels yet, but better, much better. People were surviving who would have died 6 months ago. That was what mattered. The Galactic Council had undergone massive reforms. Velthara led these changes with determination. The council chamber had been redesigned. Technical experts now sat alongside political leaders. Engineers had the same voice as generals. Medical workers participated in policy decisions. The invisible work had been made visible. Not everyone agreed with the changes. Some species clung to old prejudices. Some still believed that certain types of work were beneath others. But they were outnumbered now. The crisis had changed too many minds. The 3 months of collapse had been too devastating to forget. We must remember, Velthara said at a council meeting. We must never forget what almost happened. We built a civilization on the backs of unappreciated workers. We took essential labor for granted. We ignored the people who made everything function, and we nearly destroyed ourselves because of it. She had created a tradition. Every council meeting began with a moment of acknowledgement. Representatives stood and recognized the work of those who maintained their society, engineers, technicians, medical staff, teachers, all the people whose work kept civilization running. Some species found it strange at first, but most came to appreciate the reminder. It was easy to forget, easy to take things for granted. The moment of acknowledgement helped everyone remember. Commander Zixkor had retired from active military command. He now oversaw logistics and support systems for the Galactic Defense Force. The warrior who once mocked technical work now championed it. He ensured that support staff received recognition. He fought for their resources. He made certain everyone understood that ships did not fly without maintenance. A warrior is only as good as his equipment, he told his officers. And equipment is only as good as the people who maintain it. Treat your technical staff with respect. They are not servants. They are partners in defense. Without them, you are nothing. The military was slowly recovering. Ships could launch now. Systems functioned. Communications worked. It would be years before they reached pre-departure capabilities. But they were operational. They could protect their territories again. Trade Minister Kalvesh worked to rebuild the economic networks. New systems were being implemented. Simpler systems that alien workers could understand and maintain. They were not as efficient as what humans had built. But they worked. Goods moved between worlds again. Economies stabilized. People could buy food and medicine. The new systems included proper compensation for logistics workers. Recognition for their contributions. Clear career paths showing that this work was valued. Kalvesh made sure of it. She would not repeat the mistakes that led to the crisis. Scientist Ornvik published his definitive history of the silent departure. The book became required reading in schools across the galaxy. Young beings learned about humanity's contributions. They learned about the cost of taking people for granted. They learned that every person's work matters. He also revised all his old research papers. Each one now properly credited every contributor, including the human workers whose names had been left off originally. It did not change the past, but it corrected the record. That mattered. We cannot undo what was done, Ornvik wrote in his conclusion, but we can learn from it. We can build a better society, one where everyone's contribution is recognized, where no one's work is invisible, where every member knows they matter. In human space, civilization flourished. New Terra had grown into a thriving world. Dozens of other colonies had been established. Human technology advanced rapidly without the burden of maintaining everyone else's infrastructure. New ships were designed. New systems were created. Humanity was building something remarkable. Some humans chose to return to council space as consultants. They worked on their own terms, compensated fairly, treated with respect. Others preferred to remain in human territory, building their new civilization. Both choices were respected. Both were valid. Dr. Harper split her time between both regions. She taught in council space for 6 months each year. The rest of the time she worked in human hospitals, treating human patients, training human doctors. She enjoyed both. The difference was that now in council space people listened. They appreciated. They thanked her genuinely. Ambassador Claire Martinez had negotiated new treaties between humanity and the council. The terms were fair, mutual, based on respect rather than exploitation. Humanity was recognized as an independent power. Human contributions to galactic history were officially acknowledged. The relationship was different now, honest. She stood before a joint assembly of human and council representatives. "We are not returning to what was," she said. That system was broken. It was built on inequality, on taking people for granted. We are building something new, something better, a partnership of equals. It will not be perfect, she continued. There will be disagreements, misunderstandings, conflicts, but we will face them as partners. With mutual respect, that is all we ever asked for. Captain Alex Morgan, now Admiral Morgan, oversaw the continued expansion of human civilization. He received regular reports from advisors in council space. Progress was slow but steady. The galaxy was learning. That was enough. He stood on a viewing platform overlooking New Terra's capital city. The city had grown from a few temporary shelters to a proper metropolis in just 1 year. Buildings rose against the sky. Parks dotted the landscape. Ships came and went from the spaceport. It was beautiful. It was home. "Do you ever regret it?" an aide asked him. "Leaving? All the chaos it caused?" Morgan considered the question carefully. "I regret the suffering of innocent people. They did not deserve to pay for their leaders' mistakes. But do I regret leaving? No, we gave 400 years of service, 400 years of being overlooked. We had every right to seek better treatment." "And now?" the aide asked. "Now that things are improving?" "Now we have what we always wanted," Morgan said. Respect, recognition, partnership. Not because we demanded it, not because we forced it, but because they finally understood its value. Sometimes people only appreciate what they have after they lose it. The galaxy learned that lesson the hard way. On Council Station Alpha, Belthera watched a transmission from New Terra. The broadcast showed human children playing in parks, adults working in labs and workshops. A society where everyone's contribution mattered. It was what the council should have been all along. She thought about the old council station, the one that had housed 50,000 beings before the collapse. It would never be that large again. The galaxy had lost too much. Too many systems had been destroyed. Too much knowledge had been lost during those 3 terrible months. But what remained was built on a better foundation. A foundation of mutual respect, of acknowledgement, of valuing all contributions equally. It was smaller than what they had, but it was more honest, more fair, more sustainable. A council meeting was beginning. Velthara walked to the chamber. Representatives were already gathering. Technical experts sat among political leaders. Engineers discussed policy with diplomats. Everyone had a voice.